Alrighty, guys, we are live. Let me know how the audio sounds and let me know what the video looks like. Give me a 10 verse 10 there. What's up, Chopper? Hiawatha, GP. We'll get going in just a few minutes here. 2 or 3. Good to see you, Jari. Alrighty. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm Patrick Viahos, and we're live for a deep dive into one of Indiana's most haunting unsolved cases, the disappearance and murder of Jorden Sopher. It's July 11, 2025. We're here to honor Jorden, an 18-year-old from Wabash whose life was cut short in 2006, with no arrests nearly 2 decades later. We'll explore her story, the investigation, and why this case still resonates. Thank you for joining us. Hit that like button, share this stream. Let's get started. Also want to give a big shout out and thanks to Frank Meister for providing. He was able to acquire the raw entire case file for Jorden. He shared a lot of that with me, and we'll be going over a lot of that information today. Good to see you, GP. All I know is she disappeared from Wabash, Indiana. Yes, Jari, her body was found 3 years later. All right, let's go over Jordan's life and her background a little. Grunge truck. I went out running, and fighter jets have been flying around all day. Is that not normal for you? Do you have an air base near you? Like for instance, here in Phoenix, we have one of the largest um, Air Force bases, so we see some pretty crazy stuff. Luke's, so it's normal for us. Good to see you, Hiawatha. Welcome in, Grunge and Hiawatha. We also have GP and Jari joining us. All right. So Jorden Sopher was born on March 24th, 1988 in Indiana. Her early life wasn't easy. She grew up in the foster care system, bouncing between homes until she was adopted at 16 by Robert and Linda Sofur in Wabash, a tight knit town of about 10,000. Jorden was resilient, working at Hardee's, dreaming of earning her high school diploma, and even eyeing beauty school or the U.S. Coast Guard. Friends described her as outgoing with the spark that lit up a room. But in 2006, things got tough. Jorden argued with her adoptive mom, Linda, over a journal entry about a relationship Linda didn't approve of. And Jorden moved out, staying with friends like her coworker Erin Harlan, determined to forge her own path. So one of the main persons of interest is a guy by the name of Corey. Corey has since passed away, took his own life. He was a friend of Jordan's, but he is a prime suspect. He's not the only suspect. He's just the prime suspect. And I don't like to talk ill of the dead, so I'm going to read a lot of the information in the case file, and I'll let you guys make up your own mind. On May 23rd, 2006, Jordan's tragic turn. She was staying with her friend Erin Harlan. Maybe this is a good time for me to put the map up for you guys. Now, one thing that I learned looking into the cases, it all happened basically on one street. Like everything that was going on the days prior and the days after, it was all happening right there around Erin's home. So I think she had a false sense of security. That's what I think might have been going on. Mhm. So here in Indiana, not far from Delphi. So all of the documents and the interviews by law enforcement, we're going to go over some of those here in just a minute. They talk about this area right here in Wabash, Indiana. 213. What's with that number? 213. So 213 East Hill Street. Oh, you know what? I meant to load up another photo. Hold on. Welcome in Brandon and Beth. Welcome in, guys. Okay, so point A on the map is where Jorden Sopher was living. Apparently, she slipped out through a back door and into a back alley. Was never seen again. Well, the place that she was staying the night before is just up the street on 213 East Hill Street, apartment 3. Now, apparently, one of the main witnesses that we're going to hear from also lived at 213 East Hill Street, but I think in like apartment 1 or 2, one of the other available rooms. So keep that in mind as we kind of unroll all the information. I think she just had a false sense of security. I think that somebody got her hooked on drugs. A lot of people do that. I've heard about this happening many times. People getting women hooked on methamphetamines and things like that. Because the prime suspect, this Corey guy who was with her the night before, his name comes up time and time again through the files. Like, he is their prime suspect. Those aren't my words. It's not my opinion. I'm quoting the words of all of the lead investigators, including private investigators. Once they wrapped up their case, they were kind enough to hand over everything that they found to law enforcement. Like, hey, this is what I found, and there it is. His name again, Corey Bridenthal. Now, Corey was dating Jorden and 2 other women at the same time. All 3, even though there's not a whole lot of evidence to back up that narrative that Jorden was addicted to drugs, all of the witnesses stated that right around shortly before this all happened, her life changed. Like, everything was going fine. She was dating a boy from church. And then all of a sudden, boom, her mom finds out she's dating this creep, this, local drug addict, drug dealer. Doesn't approve. Is probably hearing about sexual activity. So she bounces. She just turned 18. She's out of there. But really, she's not very far. She's just up the street. And even the day that she was murdered, she was dropped off by Corey and another guy that actually lived here. That's whose home this was. This is where she was staying with her coworker, Aaron Harlan, and I think his name was Jason. They're also been listed as suspects in the case file. What's up, Jason? J. Ray, welcome in. Yeah, basically grooming. She was a nice kid. Like, she had no business with these folks. But when you get addicted to drugs, and some of the witnesses said that the person that she was staying with, this Aaron Harlan, and I don't know, this could be all hearsay, but it's stated in the transcripts, this gentleman stated that she's not a good person and that Jorden just started acting different. It's the telltale signs of drug addiction. And meth is one of those drugs that if you do it one time, like, that could be it for you. You might try to ride that, right into a jail cell and all your belongings gone and pop marks in your face and you're just skin and bones. But that's addiction for you. That's the outcome for many. I think Jorden might have been going down that road. This creep, she meets this creep through a coworker, right? She's hanging out with a coworker and they introduce her to drugs. Now she's hooked. Where is she going to get drugs from? She doesn't know where the hell to get drugs from. Well, Corey, right? I'll do whatever I need. I'm dating the guy who gets the drugs because that's all Corey did. All day long, he worked just to get drugs. All day long, scrap metal. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to lead with that. Okay. So on May 23rd, 2006, Jordan's life took a tragic turn. She was staying with her friend Aaron Harlan, a coworker from Hardee's. At 5:15 a.m., Aaron left for her shift, leaving Jordan in the house since she wasn't scheduled until later. Sometime that morning, a friend named Corey Bridenthal dropped Jordan off at her adoptive parents' home in a truck. She had a short talk with her dad, Robert, in the garage, hugged him, and said, "I love you." Then she walked down an alley behind the house, and that's the last anyone saw of Jordan. Jordan never made it to her Hardy shift that night. Her manager called her mom, Linda, and she was reported missing the next day. Okay, so we can't go through everything in the case file. So what we're going to do is we're going to start probably with the Scott Long report, and I'll explain what that is. Then we'll transition to Bruce Gross, and I think Bruce Gross is the gentleman that I was telling you about. Lived at the same address, but was a neighbor, and kind of was a mutual friend of Jordan's new friends and Jordan. He might have worked at the local convenience store or something like that. Then we'll look at Robert Sopher, who is Jordan's adopted father. He refused to take a polygraph. Now, Linda, his wife, had no issue. She said, "Here, I'll do it." Boom. I know nothing. I know nothing of it. So, she tried to pressure Robert to do it. He said no. And then he tried to blame it on, because what they did was they adopted a bunch of kids. Jordan wasn't the only one. So if you have any questions like why would somebody adopt a 16-year-old girl? We all know that a 16-year-old girl needs a home, right? She still has 2 hard years of development. Of course she needs a home. But this specific home, that's what they did. They adopted all kinds of children. So Robert blamed it on the fact that they took that away from him. They took all the kids out of the home because he became a suspect. And he said, "That's why I'm not taking a polygraph, because you guys basically took away my livelihood." He was a janitor at a local high school, and that's how they made their income. It was shortly after this that Linda and Robert, everything fell apart for them. They separated, and they've been moving all over the country since then. But Linda was like, "No, I'll take it. I don't know. I loved Jordan. I don't know what's going on. I cared for her. I was a mother to her." Now, the last person to speak to her. Now, if you look at the facts, to me, and this is just my opinion, I don't know, I'm just hypothetically here, Robert on paper looks like the prime suspect to me. Right? He appears to be the prime suspect, the last person to see her. He's not really her father, adopted her when she was late into the age of 16. She barely turned 18. That's like knowing somebody for a little over a year and a half. Maybe he was grooming her. Who knows what happened. But he refused to take a polygraph. Hey, GP, with the 21-month flex. Thanks for supporting my channel, GP. My muscles. Hell yeah. Thank you. Jerry, what was the adopted dad's line of work? Well, he was a janitor or custodian at a local high school. So he worked there, and then they lived off the welfare system. I think they had like 4 or 5 other adopted children. Ages ranging from young to I think Jorden being the oldest. All right, here's what's chilling. Jorden left behind her purse, her cell phone, her savings account with hundreds of dollars remaining in the account. This wasn't a runaway situation. The police questioned Aaron, Corey, and Jordan's parents. Linda passed a polygraph, but Robert refused one, saying he was taking a foster kid to the doctor. No one was ruled out, but no clear suspects emerged. Okay, so what happened in the alley? Let's zoom in here real quick. Wonder what they're referring to as the alley. Can't tell. Is there a walkway right here? I don't know. Maybe right here, or this back area by the train tracks. Most likely, right? Ooh. Okay, so she didn't leave her phone. After reading through her case file, her boyfriend, Corey, the guy who most likely got her addicted to drugs and ruined her life, took her phone. He kept it from her. And then later dropped it off after she probably was already killed and dropped her phone off at her job site, not at her house where he dropped her off. You know, it kind of seems like you're trying to stage the crime scene. Like, oh, I expected her to be at work. She told me she was going to work, so I dropped the phone off because I thought she would be there. Not that I had already killed her, you know. So you're kind of staging it. So I presume this is the alley, right? This is what they're talking about right here. Or right here. Maybe it's the side alley. I feel like this walkway is for this home here, but I could be wrong. Either way, it's either here or here. Now, she left her purse. Why would she do that? I think she left her purse because she didn't trust Corey. I don't think she trusted all three of them. The two roommates, the one that worked with her, who were friends with Corey. I think they were all drug addicts. I don't think Jorden trusted them with her money. I think she felt like they were going to rob her. She sees Corey running back and forth, scrapping metal. He doesn't even shower, apparently. According to these documents, he smells like shit. That's all he does. Scrap metal, get girls addicted to drugs and rape them, apparently, according to the documents. And just do drugs all day. Why would somebody like Jorden get mixed up with this guy? The only thing I can think of was he got her hooked. I've seen it happen. GP, it's kind of weird. I think the state pays them so much money for being foster parents, right? Is that how it works? Yes, that's how it works. Some people make a living doing that. Remember, it's all 1 out of 10, right? 9 of those households, God bless them. But there's always that one. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to spell it out for you. or like he wanted them to believe he had left her phone at work. Yes, so Corey's like, "Oh, I'm not the one that found the phone, in the vehicle." He tried to say that his friend found it, and the friend said no, Corey already had it. And later on, we found out the day before, Jorden went banging on a neighbor's door, and we're going to read that testimony. I believe that's Bruce Gross. And he's going to explain how Jorden showed up in a pan, banging on the door, asking to use the phone. Why does she need to use the phone? She has her phone. Well, no, she doesn't have her phone. Corey stole her phone. That's why he dropped her off at her house, I think. In my opinion, he dropped her off so that she can use that phone. She probably called work, probably trying to figure out how to get a new phone. He probably took her phone. Like, it's my phone now. Or you're not going to call such and such. You're not just controlling her. Like, you're not going to get help. And then maybe she called her own phone, right? Like, hey, he picks up. Hey, come drop off my phone. She comes running out, doesn't bring her purse, and maybe he grabs her or says, hey, well, just come with me real quick and I'll bring you right back. And then she might have been set up, possibly by all three, but most likely just Corey. What's up, Cindy? Good to see you. Hiawatha. I thought they found her phone and purse in the alley behind her house. Nope. Her phone was dropped off by Corey at the Hardys and was turned over to law enforcement. A lot of the information that was put out early on is through local media, and they got a lot of it wrong. And we learned that through going through the case file. J. Ray, I don't know if the dad did or not. But just before I forget, later on, there's an inmate who was locked up with Corey that came forward and said that he admitted to it. But we got to take that with a grain of salt. But he said that Corey told him that he ran a ruse on everybody. Like, he used two trucks. He left a truck parked at certain homes so people would say, oh, well, he's still there. When really he took a secondary truck. And he said he used that to trip up law enforcement and kind of muddy up the timeline, is what he told this guy. And it makes sense, too, when you're listening to all the testimony, especially from this Bruce Gross guy and everybody else. They talk about seeing Corey's truck parked in certain places. Oh, well, I thought he was here. I saw his truck. But then Corey apparently confesses while in jail that he used that. Like, he planned and plotted this murder for whatever reason. And maybe that's why she left her purse. She sensed that they were going to try to drain her savings account or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're right there, Cindy. They just need somebody. They've offered immunity, which is the important part. All of these people who are involved have been offered immunity. So at this point, if they don't come forward, they're just most likely psychopaths. That's all it could be. They have no empathy for human life or the desire to right such a wrong. They've all been provided. Everybody that knows what happened, it's either they know that Corey did it. Oh, and also another thing that Corey apparently, and I don't know, this is according to his cellmate, is that Corey told him that he did it in a way that would make it look like it was Robert Sofur who was responsible for the murders. So the only thing really going against Robert is that he was the last person to see her, and he's the stepfather, which isn't like a tight, it's not, you know what I mean. And he refused the polygraph. So later on, you had the cellmate saying that Corey set that all up, that it was all part of some diabolical plan using the trucks. And that's kind of what meth does to you. You're paranoid and you start doing all these like fantastical schemes, really. You know, intricate, but really it's ridiculous when you're on the outside looking in. But at the point, while they're in that meth induced delirium, you know, it seems so intricate and it's thought out and they're planning and, you know, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's. So I can see him kind of plotting and scheming under the influence of those drugs. Yeah, exactly. Or they're just, that could be. But I mean, when you're giving immunity, why not just tell them what happened? Like, yeah. So you lose your damn mind and forget things when you're on meth. Yeah, so maybe he didn't and wasn't sure. It's like a bad dream. Okay, so for 3 years, Jordan's case was a mystery. The trail went cold with no solid leads. Then in May of 2009, a mushroom hunter made a grim discovery in a wooded area near the Miami Wabash County line, about 15 miles from Wabash. Partial skeletal remains were found, hidden in a in the raspberry bushes and honeysuckle. Dental records confirmed it was Jorden. The clothes she wore on May 23rd, 2006 were nearby. So that's most likely right around the time she was placed there. So the clothing that she was wearing the day she went missing were also nearby the crime scene, suggesting that she died soon after vanishing. The Indiana State Police took over, working with Wabash City Police, and they've treated it as a homicide ever since. But with only half of her bones recovered, no cause of death was determined, leaving investigators stuck. Okay, so we're at about the 30-minute mark. Let's pull open this case file. I'm not going to put it up on the screen because I haven't had a chance to redact anything. But I think a good place to start is the Scott Long report. So I have a Scott Long report that basically just kind of goes over everything. It's an overview. And then I have Scott Long, an interview with this person named Tika Wintero. Let me see if that's correct. I think that might be right. Yep, that's right. Winterode. Tika Winterode. So Corey was dating Jorden Sopher, Tika Winterode, and then another girl in a nearby town who was a 16-year-old kid. Just letting you know in case you wonder who that is when that name pops up. Yeah, I think it's just him taking credit after the fact because he knows that people have thought about the dad as a suspect. Well, he also said something disgusting, J. Ray, and I don't want to disgust anybody but he said that he raped Jorden. This is Corey, according to somebody, a fellow inmate of his, a snitch, a jailhouse snitch. Let's just call it what it is. Jailhouse snitch comes forward and says that he was locked up with Corey and Corey admitted to the crime and that it was a premeditated crime and that he raped her before he killed her and then after. So we're talking about necrophilia. So I don't know anybody who's going to put that into a fake story. It's just so unnecessary. And I don't know what would motivate Corey to say something like that. But apparently it took him some time to gain his trust. And that's what he said. And that's very typical of a lot of crime scenes. There's criminals who do that, guys. They commit murder and rape. Shortly after, they'll come back and they'll re-victimize the corpse. It sounds so terrifying and disgusting, but it's common with these types of crimes, unfortunately. So I just don't know why he would admit to something like that if it wasn't true. All right, Scott A. Long. I think this is basically his overview the day after. So this is a report he wrote on May 27th, 2006. He writes here, on the 25th of May, 2006, this case was forwarded. Let's zoom out a little bit. Oop. Hold on, I screwed up. Okay, so remember on the left, this is Jordan's home at the time. And over here on the right is the friends that she was kind of staying with, good friends of her boyfriend, Corey, the prime suspect, one of them, not the only one, but the main suspect. Didn't a few people come forward saying something about her being taken to the woods down by the river? Or is that another case? Yeah, that's also correct. Jari, Ted Bundy did that too. Okay, let's continue on here. All right. On the 25th of May, 2006, this case was forwarded to me by Officer Gatchell. I sat in on the interview for the complainants, Robert and Linda Sopher, who were reporting their adopted daughter, Jorden Sopher, missing. In following up on the investigation, it was determined that Corey Bridenthal, who had dropped Jorden off at her parents' home on Tuesday morning, was wanted for a parole violation warrant. I spoke to Bridenthal on the evening of the 25th of May by calling his cellular phone. So apparently he has his own phone, right? It's the day of her disappearance. He has his own phone. So he doesn't need her phone. She's not lending it to him. He's keeping it from her. Bridenthal stated that he had dropped Jorden off on Tuesday morning, unless he was trying to make a phone call from a different number. So maybe he was plotting on somebody. Bridenthal stated that he had dropped Jorden off on Tuesday morning in the alley behind 288 West Hill Street. So that's what we're looking at here. Now, I'm not quite sure what they're referring to. The alley, I mean, this is an alley right here. It's got to be right there. So he pulls in right here. And it looks like there might be a walkway over here. Or even possibly this back gate here. Either way, that's the narrative at this point. And apparently that's what Jorden said to her father when he went in there, or when she went inside. Bridenthal stated that Jorden had told him that she was going on a motorcycle ride with her father, Robert Sopher, to Fort Wayne to get a motor for a motorcycle. Bridenthal stated that he later noticed that Jordan's cell phone was on the seat of his truck and that he contacted Hardee's, where he thought Jorden was supposed to be working, so that he could drop the phone off to her. See, there it is. And this is what psychopaths do. Psycho killers, right? He's planting the seed. Remember Barry Morphew? Oh, was it a mountain lion? You know, he's planting these seeds. And that's why he's getting so close. He's happy to interview, early on, when you can learn what they might have in that information. And then you can also plant seeds to help steer the narrative. And then just sit there and kind of hide in plain sight anyway, right? But what I'm hearing here from this report, the Scott Long report, is it kind of matches up with the jailhouse snitch, what he was saying, that he tried to frame Robert. Because here you go, right in the interview, he's trying to make it seem like Jorden and Robert had some kind of inappropriate relationship, and she rode off on the back of a motorcycle with him. He's trying to create that narrative that points away from him. And then why drop off the phone at Hardee's? Well, it's because if you're the killer, you don't want people to think you have prior knowledge. So you act like you don't. Like, right? I don't have prior knowledge that she's not deceased. So I'll just act as if. And then why does he have the phone to begin with? Jordan's not going to leave it. He took the phone from her. Okay, it says here he contacted Hardee's where he thought Jorden was supposed to be working so that he could drop the phone off to her. He found that she was not at work, so he took the phone to the apartment of Jason Gray and Aaron Harlan. That's over here. Let's see if we can zoom in over there, get an idea of what that looks like. All right, so apparently you can rent out these rooms here. All right. So she was not at work, so he took the phone to the apartment of Jason Gray and Aaron Harlan, the 213 East Hill Street apartment number 3. So somewhere up in here. Okay, let's see. Jorden had spent May 21st and the 22nd at this apartment with Aaron and Jason. It was later learned that Corey Bridenthal had spent the night of May 22nd with Jorden at this apartment and was sleeping on the couch with Jorden when Aaron woke her for work at 5:15 a.m. on the morning of the 23rd. Jorden told Aaron that she did not work the early shift and did not need to get up. All of this information was corroborated with interviews of the residents involved. On the 26th, the following day, Detective Jim Kirk and myself went to Bobtail Court Apartments in Peru, Indiana, and located Corey Bridenthal at a girlfriend's apartment by the name of Tika. So that's why I kind of explained to you who Tika was. Bridenthal was taken into custody on the parole violation warrant and transported to the Miami County Jail by Officer Mike Kennedy of the Peru Police Department. Bridenthal was somewhat disorderly and refused to talk about Jorden, being more concerned about going to jail. The girlfriend was questioned about Jorden, and she advised that she had met her a couple of times in Wabash, but did not really know her. She was upset to learn that Corey had been spending time with her in Wabash without her knowledge. She advised that on the day Jorden disappeared, Corey had been out scrapping, collecting metal to sell, and produced 2 receipts from Sturgis Iron and Metal Co., Inc., doing business in Peru as David Levin Co., Scrap Recycling. She further stated that Corey had picked up a male by the name of Brad in Wabash after dropping off Jorden, and that Brad spent the day with Corey scrapping. I asked if Brad's last name was possibly Gressley, and she stated that she thought that it was. Detective Kirk and I then returned to Wabash and stopped by the home of Robert and Linda Sopher. No one was home, and I made contact with Linda Sopher via her cell phone, and she advised that they would be home by 3:45 p.m. Kirk and I returned to the Sopher home and looked around the garage and spoke to the Sophers at length about the case. No new information was garnered from this. I then went to the McCleeman home and spoke to Glenn McCleman, who advised that Jorden was a close friend of his daughter, Chrissy, who had left at the beginning of April for Air Force basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. McCleman stated that Jorden had been kicked out of her home and had asked if she could stay with them. McCleman stated that Jorden stayed in Chrissy's room and that she had given them money to stay there. He stated that she paid them $80 the first month, given them $100 at the beginning of May. I don't know, maybe this guy could even be considered a suspect. You know, maybe he tried to take advantage of her. I'm telling you, people prey on adopted children. People who kind of grew up in the foster care home system. People take advantage of them. That's the reason they target them is because they're cowards and they fear like a strong home and a strong father and a strong mother. These types of people are cowards. You know, these sadistic, psychopathic killers prey on the weak. And unfortunately, people who suffer through the foster care system, they don't have that support system. You know, there's nobody really that they can come to like a mother and a father in a typical household. So it's a very tragic thing. Let's see here. So $80 the first month, and then in April had given them $100 at the beginning of May. McCleman stated that Jorden never gave them any problems and that there were no conflicts between them and Jorden. He further advised that when Chrissy was still at home, that Chrissy, Jorden, and a girl named Brittany, later identified as Brittany Castro, were close and hung out together. So it's almost like Jorden left all her normal friends and this fucking guy got her hooked on drugs. Maybe it wasn't just Corey. Maybe it started with her coworker, Aaron, right? Because they were all addicted to drugs, it sounds like, according to what I'm reading here. McCleman allowed me to look in the room that Jorden was staying in and located numerous notes, a notebook, and an overnight type case containing cards and letters belonging to Jorden Sopher. I took these items for investigation, and McCleman told me that a van parked in the driveway contained all of Jordan's possessions that she brought from her parents' home. The van is inoperable and is used to store these items for Jorden. So it's like a makeshift storage. So that's her kind of telling her step parents, like, I don't need you. You can't tell me I can't see this guy. You know, you're not even my real parents. I'm old enough to be out on my own. Well, this is her being out on her own. This could have put her in a very vulnerable situation, being desperate to depend on this Mr. McCleman. Not accusing him. I'm just saying, hopefully they're looking at this person. And if anybody thinks he might be involved, you should tip in that information because we can only learn from other cases that we cover. And lots of times, her being a vulnerable target that she is, the people who seem the nicest and the most helpful, the reason that they're so nice and so helpful is because they plan to victimize you guys. I hate to say that, but that's the truth. People are just not normally just nice. So be careful of people saying, oh, I'll babysit your kids. You know, I love kids. You guys go out and have a good time. You deserve it. Nobody's going to say that shit. The person who really wants to help you is going to go, all right, because you're asking them and you know that they won't say no and that they love your kids because it's a trusted family member, friend, neighbor. They're not going to go, oh, yeah, go out, go have a great time. No, because that's where the grooming happens and when it happens. And that's the vibe that I'm getting. And he could be a genuinely guy. I apologize if he hears this information. My bad. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm just saying from an investigative point of view, you should be looked at. Right? And hopefully you agree with that. Let's see here. Possessions she brought from her parents' home. The van was inoperable and used to store all the items. I then left and received a page that Brittany Castro could be at her home all night if I wanted to speak to her. I went to Castro's home and spoke to her, and she advised that her brother, Brian Philip Felipe, had been arrested on Tuesday. She thought that he had a carload of people with him. I transported Castro to her brother's home at the corner of East and Walnut Street to see if he had any information about Jorden. Felipe was not home at the time, and I will attempt to make contact with him today. Castro also advised that Jorden was friends with the girl by the name of Linnea Newell from Marion, Indiana. Glenn McCleeman had also mentioned this to me, and he advised that Linnea's mother's Karen, works at the Grant County Juvenile Detention Center, and that about 2 weeks ago, Karen had called her home in the middle of the night, hysterical and looking for her daughter. McCleeman stated that Linnea Newell was gone for a period of about 3 days at that time. I asked dispatch to contact Grant County Juvenile Detention to see if they could contact Karen Newell and have her call me. I have not received a call as of this time and will attempt to contact her myself. A note was found on the back of an envelope from Jorden and written to a John, presumably John Baus, who worked with Jorden at Hardee's. John has since been promoted, and I was told has stopped by the Wabash Hardee's inquiring every morning if anyone has heard from Jorden. Interesting. I will attempt to make contact with this subject for questioning. Investigation ongoing. What's up, Misty? All right, let's see. Let's go check out this file with Bruce Gross. Bruce Gross. Who is Bruce Gross? All righty. So, interview with Bruce Gross by Detective Jim Kirk. This is Detective Jim Kirk with the Wabash Police Department. Today's date is August 30th, 2006. The time right now is 9:30 a.m. I'm here with Bruce Gross. Bruce, can you state your name for me, please? Bruce Gross. And your date of birth, redacted. Okay, and Bruce, here to talk about Jorden Sopher. The last day you would have seen her would have been, do you remember that date in May? Not the date, but it was the night before she disappeared. I was over at Joshua Schaff's apartment talking, visiting with them, and they came knocking on the door, and they wanted a Pepsi because I keep Pepsi and drinks in my van. So I said, sure. So I went out to my van and got them. She got a Pepsi, and Corin Bridenthal got a Mountain Dew. And I said, what are you guys planning on doing tonight? They said, just hanging out at Jason Gray's apartment. So Gross must be a neighbor of Jason Gray. So he's the guy that I told you about that lives with these people. Where are we at? This must be the front. So I guess these are apartments right here. And he had soda in his work truck. Said, just hanging out at Jason Gray's apartment. And I said, I'm going to go back and visit my friend, and you guys have a good night. And that's the last time I seen him. Okay, well, before I talk to you at AutoZone, you mentioned something about them wanting you to buy alcohol for them. Did they? Corey asked me if I would, and I told him no. Okay. And what did he ask you to buy him? A half pint of Jim Beam? Okay. Did you? Why couldn't he just go buy it? I guess he didn't have money. Oh. He wanted me to loan him the money to go get it, and I told him no. Oh, okay. So he was just asking for money. Yeah. And whose house were you at? Joshua Shafts. Okay, so Joshua Shaft must be. Sorry, that must be the roommate. I do apologize, guys. I'm still trying to make sense of this all. So this guy's at Joshua Shaft's house. Who is the roommate where Jorden was staying? Not roommate, sorry. One of the occupants. A neighbor of where Jorden was staying. Sorry. Shafts. Where does he live at? He says in the front apartment. So he would have been living in the front and they were somewhere in the back. At the 213 East Hill Street. Okay. And that was the last time you saw both of them? That's the last time I saw both of them. Okay. I did the next morning. I picked up Jason Gray and we ran to Swayze to pick up some materials and everything. And then about 9:15, we got back and Corey's truck was still at Jason's apartment. See, so it's like if it was Corey, he's trying to give the impression that, he's still there. He said, and so I stayed out in the van and he went inside to see what was going on, why they haven't left his house, right? And he said they were just getting up and getting around. So Jason ran in there. And while he runs in there, they're just kind of waking up, like, okay, we're going to get our day started and then we're going to leave together. Do you know what time that was? About 9:30 or so. So at this point, this wouldn't have anything to do at all yet with a potential Corey Bridenthal plan to kind of stage a crime scene. So this is way too early. Jorden hasn't even made it to her home yet. She's getting ready to. So they're getting up. She's been staying over here. They're waking up, and Corey's going to drop her off right up the street at her house in the back alley. Okay. And then at some point, she walks out of the home, and she's never seen again. All right, let's get back to the interview. Do you know what time that was? 9:30 or so. We went back to Jason Gray's house, practically 9:15 to 9:20. And then Jason came out at about 9:25, I think, about 9:25. We went to Hardee's, and Aaron was just now getting off, and about 9:45 to 10 till, I dropped Jason and Aaron off at their apartment, and they was gone then. And they were gone. What do you mean? Oh, they're at the apartment. Sorry, it kind of gets a little weird right here. That was the last time you saw them? Yeah, they was at 9:15 to 9:20. The truck was there at Jason's Gray apartment. Right. 10 till 10. When I dropped them back off at Jason Gray's apartment, the truck was gone. Okay, and you just dropped them off, Aaron and Jason, and you left? And I left. Did you have any contact with them the rest of that day? No. Phone or anything? Jason, they used her phone to call me. Oh, that's weird. This is interesting. Jason. So remember the guy who said he found the phone in Corey's truck. So we're learning that he actually called this gentleman from her phone. They used her phone to call me, and I don't know if it was Jason or Aaron that called me. I can't remember. But one of them called me on her phone. Yeah, why would they do that? That's weird. Do you know? I know she didn't do it. Well, later that evening, you mean, or when would that have been? I think they called me on the phone, and then the night before, because, yeah, I think it was the night before because I had Jason with me, and Aaron, wanted to talk to Jason. Do you know what it was about? No, I don't. Uh-huh. Okay. Now, did Aaron, you knew she was having a relationship with Corey. Did you know that? Or Jorden? I mean, Jorden was. Yeah, I knew he had. I know that he was seeing Jorden. Uh-huh. Because when we lived on Main Street, I don't know the address on Main Street, and I seen him hugging, kissing, and then they got into a big argument because she suspected him of cheating on her and stuff. So when that happened, I just turned around and said, Jason, I'm not going to stand here and listen to this bullshit. So I left. So here we're kind of seeing signs of a volatile relationship, like a toxic relationship, and him just continuing to use her. You know, she had money. I think they planned to rob her. Maybe she had a bunch. She had like a couple $100 in her savings account. That would have got them high for a week or two, maybe a couple days. He's talking about Aaron, Harlan, and Jason. Okay, who did she think Jason was cheating on? No, Corey. Jorden thought that Corey was cheating on her. Oh, so they started arguing at Jason and Aaron's apartment. What day was this? It was back when they was living on Main Street. I don't know that day. I don't. They lived over here on Hill Street for 3 weeks or so. So they had only been living here for 3 weeks. See, we're learning a lot, guys. So, I mean, are they in and out of properties? You know, they get kicked out. They can't pay the rent. And it's like these guys are just using these girls, right? These hardworking women working at Hardee's. Let's get them. Let's get them hooked on meth, and then we'll control them. Some Charles Manson shit. How long did they? I mean, how long was Corey and Jorden together then? I'm not sure. I know when I started going, hanging, visiting Jason, Jorden and Corey was staying the night at the apartment over on Main Street. Uh huh. I don't know how long they've been together, but they started arguing because I offered Jason a job, and so they hurried up and tried to get back there. And I tried to call him a couple of times on Corey's cell phone, and when I called him, they just kept on hanging up. And a half hour later, they pulled in and they started arguing, saying, "What have you guys been doing? You guys out hoeing around?" And Jorden, well, both of them went off on Jorden, went off on Corey, and Aaron went off on Jason. And I said, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm out of here. This is when they lived on Main Street. That's when they lived on Main Street. Did anybody else witness this? Did anybody else witness this argument? I was the only one in the apartment when I pulled in, but Aaron and Jorden were upset because Corey and Jason was late. They told was late and they'd been calling them. Had they been calling them or you were calling them? No, they had been calling them. And they were hanging up the phone and not talking, right? So that's probably them with their other girlfriends. You know, using them to get money, places to stay, whatever, you know. Use their phones, plot and scheme. So Aaron was pissed off at Jason, and Jorden was pissed off when they got back, and Jorden was pissed off at Corey. Correct. And this would have been 3 weeks before they moved to East Hill Street. Yeah. Which they just moved to East Hill Street the weekend before she came up missing. Right. I know they was out scrapping and stuff like that. I don't know if it was illegal, if they honest about it or anything. I don't know about that. I just know they was out finding scrap and stuff. Uh-huh, okay. And when they went out and came in saying they'll be home at a certain time and they come in at 2 to 3 hours later, that's when they started fighting and everything. The one day I was there, I wasn't going to listen to it because I don't want to get involved. So I left. Since Aaron disappeared, have you had any contact with Aaron or Jason? Make sure you call her Jorden. Jorden, yeah. Since Jorden left. I had contact with Jason a couple of times because he worked with me. He helped me with one job, and then he went and got into a big fight, something downtown. I was there when he got into this fight downtown at the bar. It was self-defense. He shouldn't have had to spend the time in jail because the guy laid his hand on Jason, and then when he went to court and found guilty and everything, he put me on his visiting list. I went down there one time to see him at the jail. You guys ever talk about Jorden? No, never have. Uh-huh. If you guys talk to me about it and I said they questioned me and I told them the exact same thing told Scott out at the house. And I said, "What do you know about it?" He said nothing. Last time I seen her was when Corey and her was in the apartment together. Uh-huh. Do you have any reason why Corey would do anything to her? Is there any reason why Jason would do anything to her? Has Jason ever had any relationship with Jorden? I don't know. Do you suspect that he did? I don't I don't know. And if I don't know, I can't say. Right, okay. How long have you known Jorden? Just when I met her down there at Jason Gray's house? Down on Main Street. That's the day they argued. Uh-huh. And it was Jorden the one arguing a lot, or was it mainly Aaron? Both of them, really. Jorden was arguing with Corey, and then, yeah, Aaron was arguing with Jason. Okay. Do you have anything else you need? You got any health issues right now? Yes, I do. What's that? I prefer not to discuss that. It's none of anybody's business. You got leukemia? Something like that? Okay, we're detectives. We heard that. So he had leukemia. Damn. I just want to verify it. He says, I'm HIV positive. Okay, that's my disease. Okay, I'm totally disabled. I'm full blown. Well, let's tell him what we heard. We heard you had CA. Yeah, we heard you were dying of leukemia. Maybe that's what he's telling people. I can understand if that's what you've been telling people. You don't want to go, well, I got AIDS, you know. I understand if that's what you've been saying. Then that explains it. I don't think it's anybody's business, and I don't want nobody to know. Well, that's fine. But don't you think it would be good for law enforcement to know that if you're ever in an accident? If they come up there and I'm bleeding and everything, I will let medics know that I'm. What if you're unconscious in a traffic accident? Yeah, I understand your side of it, but I'm trying to explain to you why we would need to know that. Because I've crawled in many a car, and told somebody's head and they're bleeding all over me, you know, what's happened to me in the past. And all we need to do is put gloves on, you know. A lot of times we don't take the time to do that, but there are gloves in the car. I was just concerned everybody around town saying, well, Bruce told me he's dying of leukemia. And I thought, we've heard that from more than one person, you know. And that's why we thought, well, we better get your statement. And now, in case you know something happens, in case something does happen to you, you know, something, this is all. That's all I know. Okay. And I don't want nobody, if I get in an accident, I'll tell them that I was told by any couple paramedics that whenever they come up an accident, they suspect everyone has some type of disease. Well, it doesn't always work that way. Well, that's easy for them to say, but you know, if I'm off duty and I stop at an accident. So let's see. It looks like they're getting off topic here. Okay, here we go. That's all I know. You know the parents at all? They've lost their child and now they're going to lose their house and everything else. They've been victims twice. If you have any idea or any knowledge, that's why we need to find out and try to eliminate them as suspects. Right now, like I said, their income with foster kids is done until we solve this case. Because there's no family service. People are going to put any foster kids in their house until they know that they had nothing to do with it. So it looks like the cops pulled this trick to get Robert Sopher to take the lie detector test. They're like, until you cooperate with us, we're going to take away your livelihood. And it basically destroyed his family. Shortly after that, everything changed for them. They moved to Iowa, and, you know, they separated. All this craziness was going on. So why not just take the polygraph? You know, it makes you wonder. But I don't fault anybody for refusing to take a polygraph, honestly. So I find that too suspicious. There's people out there that refuse. There's people that take the polygraph, that fail it, take it again the next day, and then pass it. So, like, which one is it? You know what I mean? Best 2 out of 3. And these are all victims, you know. Most of these foster kids are victims from other things. These are God, they believe in God, and do you believe in God too? Yeah. Okay, well, you understand the situation, man. And if they're saying you can do to help this whole case by talking to Jason or, find out information if you can. Well, I hate to be going on being labeled as a narc to, well, you understand the situation. I know, I understand your situation, but I just prefer to stay out of it, and so I won't be involved. Well, if everybody does that, then we'll never solve this case. All right, so they're just kind of small talking. No more case information, and then they leave. They close out right there. Okay, so that was Bruce. Let's take a look at Robert Sopher's interview. What's up, Frank? Miss Dog Lover, welcome in. Spoke to Aaron for about an hour, a little over a year ago. Yeah, HIV is treatable. I know Magic Johnson doesn't even have. It's not even in his blood. They say he has it, but they can't. It's not even detectable. But it doesn't mean anybody wants to catch it, and you should be open about it. I agree with the officer. You shouldn't keep that secret, especially going to be around a bunch of druggies sharing needles and shit. That's not cool. She Warrior, what up? All right, I need to find this folder. Um, this one is actually kind of scattered. I don't have it very organized. So maybe we'll read a couple pages, maybe 3. And then we'll go read Corey's interrogation. Okay, so Robert Sopher. So the following investigation was conducted by Roger Hildebrand and Ted Childress, who identified themselves as representatives of Project Alert, a NCMEC program. It was also explained that the investigation was being conducted at the request of the Wabash Police Department, Wabash, Indiana. On September 25th, 2006, Robert Sopher was contacted at his place of employment, Northfield High School, 200 North, Wabash, Indiana. He provided the following information. He admitted that he is Jorden Sopher's stepfather. He stated he is employed at the Northfield High School as a maintenance employee. The last time he saw Jorden was when she showed up around 10:30 a.m., May 23rd, 2006, at his home. He had called her on the phone the previous evening, and the evening prior to that, he told her to come over. He would take her for a motorcycle ride. So that's true. So that wasn't something that Corey made up to try to make it look like he's guilty. So this is highly suspicious. Come over, and he would take her for a motorcycle ride. But the real reason he wanted her to come over was that he wanted to check her out. They suspected she was using drugs, and Robert wanted to look in her eyes to determine if she was on drugs. And those were my suspicions. But doesn't mean that something didn't happen, and for whatever reason he took her life right then and there, maybe out of anger. I don't know. There's no evidence to support that yet. He explained that his son-in-law had previously owned 2 motorcycles that were kept in Robert's garage. He had moved away and had taken one of the motorcycles with him. When he came back to pick up the other one, the battery was dead. Robert was working on replacing the battery, and during his phone calls had offered to take Jorden on a motorcycle ride. When she arrived on the morning of May 23rd, she was dropped off by a guy driving a black truck. So Robert didn't know exactly who was in the vehicle, but he did see. One of the questions earlier was, did Robert see her being dropped off? So he did see, but he didn't recognize the people in the truck. He just described it as by a guy driving a black truck. He and Linda did not know who he was at the time. Linda was not there as she was working at the church. Except for the 3.5-year-old Bryson, all the children were at school. Robert was babysitting Bryson and was still in bed when Jorden arrived. At some point, one of the children had a tooth broken at school, and Linda had to take that child to Fort Wayne for a doctor's appointment. After she got out of the truck, they had a very short conversation. She was there only about 5 minutes. He told her he could not go on the motorcycle ride because he was babysitting Bryson. She then said, "Well, I got to go." Robert then heard the gate latch click open and then click shut. The gate latch. Yeah, so she must have walked out of that gate that we were talking about. This one over here. So if he was in the garage, that must be back here. So I'm still not sure. I'm thinking maybe it's this gate here. But wouldn't he see her? Yeah, that doesn't line up. Anyway, I don't want to get caught up on that. Okay, so after she got out of the truck, they had a very short conversation. She was there only about 5 minutes. He told her he could not go on a motorcycle ride because it was babysitting. Well, I got to go. Robert heard the gate latch click shut. He said that Jorden gave no indication as to where she was going. Robert stated that Jorden may have gone back to where she was living. It was only up the street, guys, remember. It was within walking distance. She had been living on the south side of town, but later went to East Hill, where she was living with some gal she worked with. Robert stated that they had adopted Jorden when she was 16 years old. She lived with them since she was 14 years old, and she was 18 when she disappeared. Okay, so that gives us a little more context. So they didn't adopt her when she was 16. It's like they were going through the process since she was 14. So I'm missing a few pages. We'll continue on here. Other than the nightmares, Linda and Jorden got along very well for a long time. The main problem they had with Jorden was boys. She was sexually active from the time she moved in until the day she disappeared. On one occasion, she was caught with a boy. There were rumors she was having sex with other people also, even in the library bathroom and at Emmanuel. She went on a trip with Emmanuel Church to attend the Tennessee Free Will College, and something happened there involving Jorden. Linda never heard the full story about what actually happened, but it was an indication of continuing problem with Jorden. So she needed the help that they weren't giving her. She needed a different kind of help, very specific for her. One problem they never had with Jorden was drinking. That they never had with Jorden was drinking and drugs. That lasted until her 18th birthday. And at that point, they began to see a different side of her. For one thing, she was working at Hardee's and apparently having a sexual relationship with the manager named John. So that's somebody else that we can talk about in future live streams on Jorden, who was 40 years old. So maybe he had been grooming her. Also, she was cussing a lot and using the F word frequently and in the presence of other children. Linda and Robert began to suspect that she might be using drugs. Linda confronted Jorden and told her that she couldn't be doing stuff like she was doing and to go to a Christian school. Nothing changed. One thing that happened caused Linda to question whether Jorden was truthful with her. She and Robert had forbidden Jorden to have. She somehow got one and hid it from her and Robert. One of the foster kids found it and took it to school, which is not allowed. One of the teachers confiscated the phone and the foster child got in trouble over it. Linda thought Jorden would admit it was her phone, but she kept quiet about it, which disappointed Linda. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Jorden's phone. Maybe somebody was. Remember, guys, that's what I tell you. Like, predators can give you a phone. Like, oh, my daughter, my son didn't have a phone. Well, the predator can provide you a phone that you're supposed to hide. So this other foster kid could have been lying and may have been being groomed as well. And Linda might be blind to it. She's like, I found this phone, and they're blaming Jorden, right? Jordan's like, that's not my phone. I didn't give him that phone. So maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe those are signs of some type of grooming that might be going on behind the scenes that Linda's just completely blind to. On April 1st, after Jorden had turned 18, she came home one night and had an argument with Linda. She used the F word several times. Linda told her that she and Robert were sorry things had come to this, but that she would have to change. Linda told her that we can't live like this. She told Jorden that they love her, but she has to change or they would have to ask her to leave. Linda said Jorden had talked about going out on her own for some time. When Linda said she to change or else, Jorden said, I'll just go now. Linda said her next comment was, don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. Well, that's not very nice. That doesn't seem very supportive, Linda. That is how they parted. At that point, Linda tearfully questioned whether she should have kicked Jorden out that way. Of course not. But hindsight is 2020, right? On Mother's Day, May 14th, 2006, Jorden came by the house. She was obviously high on something. Well, there you go. More evidence of the drug abuse. And was again using cuss words, hanging around on this group. This is what it kind of reminds me of. You know, like she stumbled upon the Lost Boys. They're trying to turn her into a vampire. Do you know these meth addicts? They were trying to slowly turn her. She was talking about cruising in the prairie. I wonder what cruising in the prairie means. I wonder if the prairie has anything to do with where she was eventually found. Once again, she was using the F word. Linda told her they would have to ask her to leave, which she did. Linda was asked if she recalls having an argument on the phone the night before she disappeared. She replied that she did not have an argument with Jorden on the phone and, in fact, does not recall talking to her at all that night. She stated she will check her cell phone records to determine if there was a cell phone call between the two of them on the night before Jorden's disappearance. When asked if she has heard any rumors about what happened to Jorden, she stated that she had heard two rumors. She said that she was at a fairgrounds recently, at which time she was stopped by a friend from church by the name of Mona Copeland. Copeland told her that she heard from the mouth of one possibly Jake Hensley that he and two other guys were partying with Jorden, and she overdosed on drugs. So this is one of the rumors they heard. He stated that they freaked out and threw the girl's body in the Wabash River. That kind of makes sense because that's where they found her. Almost as if the water kind of flooded up real high, pushed her up onto the flood area, and then the water receded and kind of left her in the bushes. That kind of matches. That matches the crime scene. And that's prior knowledge right there. Like this is way before they found her. So this makes a whole lot of sense. Let me read that again. So one of the rumors is she was stopped by a friend from church by the name of Mona Copeland. Copeland told her that she heard from the mouth of one possible Jake Hensley. Okay, so Linda is stopped by a friend from church named Mona. Mona tells Lindy, Jordan's foster mother, that she heard from somebody possibly named Jake Hensley that he and two other guys were partying with Jordan and she overdosed on drugs. And that they freaked out and threw the girl's body in the Wabash River. I mean, that matches with the evidence. The second rumor, she heard that somebody has identified Jordan as a girl that recently attended a youth meeting at a church in Kokomo, Indiana. Linda said after hearing these rumors, she notified the police. She stated the police just laughed at her when she told them about the overdose rumor. In view of their attitude, she then took a picture of Jordan to Jake Hensley. Hensley positively identified the photo as the girl he and his friends were partying with. She stated that the body shop is owned by Jake's uncle or father, whose name is Doug Henley. She also went to Kokomo, Indiana, and tried to talk to a guy named Frankie that had originally started the rumor that Jordan recently attended a youth meeting at a church there. So she's doing her own investigation. I like Linda. Other than what she said to Jordan when she left, she seems genuine. She stated that Frankie did not show up that night, nor did Jordan show up. She has not made any additional efforts to verify this rumor. Linda was asked why she did not take the polygraph offered to her by the Wabash Police Department. She said she was never asked to take a polygraph. She also said her husband has refused to take a polygraph because years ago he took a polygraph test, and although he was guilty, the polygraph said he was innocent. I wonder what this was about. For that reason, he believes that the polygraph examinations are not reliable. And that sounds like a lie. That sounds like something a manipulator would say. So refuses to take another one, right? And his story seems to change. Also, the family services group who took their foster children from them treated them badly, called them liars, and said they would never foster parent for Wabash County again. The police department also treated them badly when they had a joint meeting of the family services, police, and themselves because of the way they were treated and because her husband refuses to take a polygraph. She believes that she should also refrain from taking a polygraph. It was explained to her that the science of doing a polygraph examination is much improved today, and the police and the missing exploited organizations have nothing to gain by administering a faulty polygraph. She was told that the fact that she is unhappy with family services and possibly the police has nothing to do with the reliability of the polygraph. She was told that if they would submit the polygraph, it would make a clear statement to the general public, the police, and the family services organization that they are cooperating totally with police and others in an effort to find their daughter. So I think she does pass. Okay. So there's a lot to go over. Let me see what time it is. 1:29. Let's go to the chat, and then we're going to get into Corey's initial interview. This is Corey Reidenthal. He has since passed away. He took his own life. What's up, Miss Persevere? What's that mean, Miss Persevere? That sounds rude. I'll go ahead and get you out of here. I'm not sure what's up her butt. You should be grateful. Whatever. Sleaze bags never change. Okay, so we'll read a couple of pages of this. All right, interview with Corey Bridenthal, Detective Jim Kirk, July 11th or possibly August 17th. Okay, says, well, we're here to ask you some questions. Okay, over this, let me read your rights to you, okay? Yeah, again? Why is that? Almost like they're afraid to get arrested. Well, every time I talk to you, I have to read your rights to you. You must understand the right to ask you questions. You must have your parents, well, you have the right to remain silent. And then he reads him his rights. So you have the right to stop at any time. You understand those rights. Yeah. Okay. Are you willing to talk to us? Okay, but we didn't have any regular ones. It's the same rights. The only thing different is you don't need telling the same story, like I said. Didn't wind up anchored in the Wabash River. Now, where'd Mona Copeland hear this information from? From them, from Corey Bridenthal or Music Boy. Or something. My daughter's. You think when she's telling me this stuff that I'm going to remember it word to word? No, that's why I called the police department and told them. Wait, I think I might have this list. Hold on. Yeah, this is just too disorganized, guys. So I think what we're going to do right now is we'll spend the rest of the time in the chat. And we'll do a part 2 on Jorden Sopher Unsolved Murder. And I need to organize Corey's interrogation. So if you guys have anything to add, do it now in the chat. Not sure what was going on with Miss Persevere. Just jumped in and started talking shit, so I blocked her. Yeah, you guys, when you're reading transcripts, it's not like you're reading somebody's writing. You're reading transcripts, somebody trying to catch what people are saying. So if people are talking weird or with an accent or they're not using proper English, when you read it, that's what it's going to sound like. Okay, so even after 19 years, Jordan's case hasn't faded, thanks to true crime communities. Some have speculated about a connection to the 2017 Delphi murders of Libby German and Abigail Williams, about 30 miles from Wabash. Why would they do that? Well, Jorden and Libby look similar. And the suspect, Richard Allen, arrested in 2022, has ties to Peru, where Jordan's remains were found. The Wabash police told me in 2023 they investigated Allen and found no link. Other names like Gary Hall, brother of a known serial killer, or the Klein family from Peru have popped up online, but there's no evidence tying them to Jorden. Jorden Sopher was more than a case. She was a daughter, a friend, a dreamer taken too soon. Her sister Danielle wrote in 2009 that she was outgoing, a good person. I miss her so much. We need to keep Jordan's story alive. If you have any information, call the Wabash City Police or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. Let's make 2025 the year we get answers. So, other than the Corey Bridenthal interview, that's pretty much all I got. So, once I get that organized, we'll go live again. Maybe we'll do a members only on part 2. sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Go check out the website, sleuthintuition.com. And if you can't hit the Cash App, go ahead and hit the like button. Appreciate it, Jaren. Yeah, we'll try to keep it that way. Every once in a while, we have people freak out. I don't know what it's about. And then she mentioned ghost hunting. I did one live stream on ghost hunting, you weirdo. Sometimes I wonder if people come to the chat after they've been drinking or something. Or maybe they get offended by the meth statements. Maybe they're high on meth. What do you mean, Jari? Because I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. Thank you, She Warrior. Yeah, I'd like to see her come and read these transcripts. Worse than trying to read the ones from Kagan Klein. Tattoo. All right, guys. I'm thinking we're going to push back the live stream that I had scheduled for 6. And we'll do an open panel. And if anybody has a problem, they can go ahead and call in and they can get it off their chest. I'll put up the phone number and the link to join in the StreamYard. Or you can just call in and we'll have a great time. Either way, I want to thank you guys for helping bring attention to Jordan's case. Right now, there's a lot of tunnel vision going on, but there's definitely plenty of information that points away from a prime suspect and a whole shit ton that points right at them. But still, the case is unsolved. All they need is one person that knows what happened to Jorden to come forward and make a statement, and they can close the case. So if you guys are listening and you know what happened to Jorden, you can be the one that brings justice for her. Say something. They're going to give you immunity. There's no risk. Silent tip, anonymous. Let's just get the book closed on her case. Either way, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Big shout out to everyone who caught the live stream. If you're part of the replay, you know exactly what to do. Drop a comment and we'll get back to you. And hopefully I'll see you guys a little bit later. If not, catch you on the flip side. Peace.